Hello, Martin Warwick here, reporting from the Small Cells World Summit here in Excel in Docklands in East London. And I'm talking with Paul Gowans, who is Director of Mobile Strategy at JDSU. Paul, what factors are driving demand for small cell technology in mobile networks right now?
Well, we've got, operators, network equipment vendors here, and vendors such as us talking about the need for small cells. And I guess there's two key drivers, right? One is around capacity and one is around coverage. Everyone wants access to their apps, no matter where they are. So the business case, I think, for operators from a capacity standpoint is pretty compelling. Those kind of hotspots, urban areas that need access to services. I guess the slower deployment of small cells we'll probably see in those coverage areas in rural environments, because it's not such a compelling business case. But at the end of the day, everyone wants access to their mobile apps, whether they're in the office or at a mall or in the street or in a stadium or at an airport. And I think that kind of ubiquitous need for always-on app access is really what's driving demand.
So that's what's driving the market at the moment and where the opportunities are. Let's look on the obverse of the coin. What do you think are the key challenges, the problems that are being faced by telcos as they begin to deploy and implement small cell solutions?
Well, it's interesting, because the first thing you have to think about with small cells is, where do I put them? Then you need to think about what's the whole kind of cost envelope for bringing up those small cells, because we're not now dealing with large macro sites, very different kind of cost infrastructure. We're now dealing with, it could be thousands, could be tens of thousands of small cells. So the whole thing is, what devices, what instruments, what help do I need to bring these cells into service, what you might call the birth certificate of the cell, to get it up and running. So we need to think about that. How do I get power to it? How do I get backhaul to it? How do I test it? And then the final thing, of course, is from a scale perspective, is how do I manage this whole thing? How do I kind of manage this whole network? I've now not got hundreds of nodes, I've now got thousands of nodes or tens of thousands of nodes. So the scale's different. So I need to think about how do I kind of manage that effectively. And at the end of the day, how am I ensuring that the service quality I wanted to deliver with small cells is what I'm doing?
Where does all this play into the evolution of the HETnet, the heterogeneous network?
None of these technologies are an island in themselves, right? So you can't think there's small cells, there's DAS, there's macro, there's Wi-Fi. They all have to, interact in some form. There may be interference, they may be having to offload a macro site, Wi-Fi might be offloading another site. So I think the technology for that continues to evolve, as it should do. We learn more, whether we're putting an LTE Advanced now in, or it's a different service getting put in, it's carrier aggregation. But I think a lot of the technology is there to effectively help operators deploy and run these networks. Of course, it's only once you're at a particular scale do some of those challenges come into play more. And we all hear about kind of network functions, virtualizations. So we have to think about, how do I adapt to that as it's a different scale. But I think we know from events such as this that we're at with the Small Cell Summit that a lot of the technology is there to help operators do it. And I think we're in the year where we'll start to see much more proliferation of small cells.
What do you see then as being the challenges and benefits of VoLTE, Voice over LTE?
I really think VoLTE is going to be a key service over the next 12 months. So rather than just think about the plumbing now, let's think about what the service is. So from a user benefit, what do they get? They get HD voice and they get fast connection time. They need a new handset to do that, but that's a benefit. From an operator point of view, they get a much better OPEX budget. They get to utilise RAN resources much better. They get to do everything across IP and IMS. So there's benefits on both sides, but we need to think about, how do you ensure that the service getting delivered is the one that you've tried to provide? And that means, is the RAN there? Is the core there? Is the policy control there? Is IMS working? The signalling, the control plane for VoLTE is non-trivial. And also, if you move out of a LTE environment, you go into a 3G environment, it needs to fall back, right? So those interactions need to work seamlessly. So there's a lot of benefit, but it is a challenge. But thankfully there are tools around Conjadius is involved heavily in those and working with our operator customers today to help manage those challenges and ensure that, at the end of the day, the end customer, the subscriber, gets the high quality voice service that they've subscribed to.
And finally, how are telcos leveraging existing backhaul capabilities?
Yeah, it's funny, it comes and goes, the backhaul question, whether it's the key thing today or actually front haul is more important. The one thing I hear about a lot is that it used to be clear where kind of front haul ended and backhaul started, right? And when you look at kind of small cells and DAS and HetNets and Cloud RAN, it's not so obvious where that is, but there are kind of key access points that operators need to know to be able to get information. But you've got things, for example, like we've got RF and fibre coming together in this domain. These kind of worlds are colliding, and therefore I think that evolution of front haul and back haul is kind of going along together, and the demarcation's not so clear between them. But I think a lot of carriers realise that and are kind of working that into their strategic plans.
Paul Gowans, many thanks.
Thank you for having me.